Hi, I'm Colleen Elliott, and I teach high school at Northwest Classen High School. And I am excited about getting the opportunity to share with you a little bit about Marzano's focused teacher evaluation model. And I cannot tell you enough how excited I am to be a proud member of Oklahoma City AFT. And I would encourage anyone to be part of that community. Whenever you need something, they're there with you. And as being teachers, we know how important it is to be collaborative. So I encourage you to think about joining, because I can't tell you enough how much it means to me to be a member. And so that's the reason I want to share, because I think as being a member of a community and Oklahoma City right now, all of us are in a new place that we've never been before. And it's challenging and yet exciting. And so, how does that translate from being an in person with an evaluation in my teaching style to being a remote teacher? And so, I'm going to give you some hints and show you some things that the district has put up for you on their website so that you too will know how to maneuver in our new reality. So, here we go. You ready? All right, so just like in my classroom, I always start with my learning goals. And so today, the learning goal for us is that we are participants. We're going to understand how to understand the Marzano teacher evaluation model and how it supports teacher growth through feedback. And when we talk about our big goal, we always have our targets. And so our target to walk away with is to understand that common language and the organization of the model frame and how it supports growth and our expertise. And we can recognize the strategies within the Marzano model and that are already part of our own current instruction. That's the great thing about the way the Marzano is laid out, is that it's based on research. And so best practices that we do every day fit this model easily. And it is basically the backbone for Marzano. So when you hear it, you don't need to think big bad wolf, because it's something you already do. So don't get scared. For you that have done it for a long time, it's just a little different than before, because we've been teaching in a on-person classroom, and now we're doing remote. So we're going to learn about how those 23 elements of the Marzano focus protocol are going to help us move forward in our new environment. Okay. And so we're in that framework. When we talk about observation timeline, you've already had one. So your administrator's already been through and give you some feedback already. So it's the same now. It's an informal, unannounced, and it has to be completed by December 17th, 2020. There are 3 focus areas that we have, 2 informal and 1 formal. And the 3 of them go together to give you your final score for the year. So we'll have 1 more next semester, but nothing to worry about, right? All right, so when we look about this, informal, what is an informal? So it's unannounced, and it's going to be 15 to 20 minutes that your administrator is going to be in your classroom and for the teacher to be informed. And when we talk about formed, that doesn't mean they're going to say, hey, I'm going to be in 4th hour today. It means that you know it's going to occur sometime between now or December 17th, they will be in your classroom. And then you should receive timely feedback, actionable feedback that you will receive within 5 days of their visit to your classroom. And like I said earlier, the results will be part of your final evaluation. So when we talk about those things, and I'm going to get myself out of the way, hang on. Let's see if I can maneuver this little thing here. Apparently not. I'm going to chase it over. I'm just going to move me over here. Okay, so when we think about what's expected, where do I look for that? How do I know? Well, the district has published a teacher and leadership effectiveness guide. It is called the TLE guidelines. They have it in their Google sites. It is a Google Doc, so you can download it and keep it with you. And all you have to do is go to Oklahoma City at OKCPS.org, and you can go to the departments and find TLE, or you can use the link that's here. Okay, but it's a very useful tool because it's going to have all of the things that questions you might have. The answer should be there. Okay. And I'm going to pick out some of those pictures for you. out of the pages and give you information tonight. And I'll tell you now, you need to think about page 8, because that is one where you're going to find out exactly what the formal, informal looks like. And then it also tells you how the scoring works. So you can always reference back into that. All right. I like to use essential questions when I teach. So why the Marzano teacher model? Well, that's because we want to have effective teachers and leaders in every classroom. That is so important, because right now that's key. You are the lifeline for our students. You are providing them relationships and backbone to what we're doing. And so that goes along with having those key points. And the bad thing of not having an effective teacher in the classroom is it is the same as if the kid were absent for 40% of the school year. Can you imagine? So we don't want that to happen to our students or anyone's students, because we want them to be successful in what they do. And then you hear all the time that word rigor. Well, Marzano is key in helping you think about how can I not fall into the gap and not have my kids have rigor. We want to make sure that we're there. So that essential is there a teaching gap that's resulting in rigor? It can. And that's why the focus model works with the standards, the instruction with our students, and how achievement looks. And so by doing that, we are able to think about what is it going to take so that the criteria meets my students' needs. Okay? And so once again, as we think about that, Marzano Focus is designed around rigorous standards-based. So it establishes that for every classroom, we are all teaching state-based standards, and we are being relentlessly focused on student results. We need some kind of indicator, whether it's your benchmark, whether it's your formative data you get every day when you do Q&A, or when you're doing an exit ticket with your kiddos. And then utilize a objective system of evidence-based evidence. We all ask that with our kiddos when we say, prove that problem in math, or we have them write something and they're telling me how the story works this way. And I say, well, then show me, give me some textual evidence. We ask that of our students. So we should be able to provide evidence to show that our kids are doing well, and that I, as a teacher, am being able to be successful using the skills and the techniques and the strategies that are best practices. And an instruction model that leads a pathway to scaffolding instruction for those complex texts. We have to think and meet our kids where they are. And so how do I get where I need to be to meet my kids' needs? And to empower teachers with the tools and resources so that we can grow our practice. And so I think the district has realized this year, as we're going into this new journey of being remote, that there has to be some changes and there has to be some things. And so I think that when you look at some of the things that are out there on the website, they may not have been shared to you, but they're there, or you've started doing things in your classroom by collaborating. It's probably thinking about the things that are the best practices all the time. Look at this list. Do you do these things? I'm sure you do. How many of you have your kids take notes? You're using vocabulary in your classroom. Graphic organizers. I think my kids got so tired of graphic organizers, but they love them because they knew that they could get the stuff in an organization. Are you chunking? Are you tracking your kids' progress? All of these things are the strategies that we all need to be looking at, whether it's an in-person classroom or remote classroom. And look, it's nothing that you're not already doing. So it's not a big change in your pedagogy of how you teach. And look at this significant gains, because the one thing about this is that if your kids are taking notes, then the percentile of their achievement level goes up 17%. Just telling them what you expect and setting those goals, just like I showed you at the beginning, 25% increase in their understanding. Summarizing, having them tell you what they learned, or restating what they're working on in their own words, 19%. This one's huge. Having kids be accountable for their own progress and tracking what they're doing, making them a part of it, because if it's a joint process, everyone's going to be involved. And these are the areas of things that are on your evaluation. So we're not doing anything that we don't already do as effective teachers. And so Marzano is laid out in 4 sections, and it has a total of 23 elements. So as we think about that, you do this anyway. And the ones that you need to really pay attention to, there are 2 standards that are part of the evaluation every time they come into your room. And one of those is planning, standard-based lessons or units, which is right here. And then identifying critical content from the standards. Those 2 go hand in hand. And notice it's planning, instruction, conditions for learning, and professional responsibilities. So as we think about that, think about, how am I going to meet that instruction? I know I've got the standard in front of me. Well, the best part about that is you can use the new curriculum guides that the district has put out, as well as the State Department has sources too. So you're not having to do this alone, and it is a collaborative part. And then how are the conditions going to be? How am I going to engage my students? That's a standard. That's a strategy we do every day. We want our kids involved, and building relationships. And right now, let's be honest, we need to be building relationships. That needs to be our #1 focus, because our kids need us. It's very hard to be in isolation. We know as adults how hard it is not to be with our kids and to be with our colleagues. So building those relationships, telling those kids when they come in every day, hey, it's great to see you. How was your afternoon? How were your other classes? Hey, had you see a great movie that you like? That sounds like something I want to do. Tell me a little bit more about that. It doesn't hurt to take those extra few minutes every day in your classroom to build those relationships. Those kids need to know they're special, that they're your babies. And that is going to mean more in this time than some of these other things. And so as we engage our students and we build a relationship, they're going to want to do what you want them to do, which is learning. And they're going to want that. And you that's signaling that. And remember too, it is a classroom and it is a collaboration process. You and your kids doing great things. And so that's exciting. And that goes back to here. Teachers doing what teachers do, but being on time, doing what you're supposed to do, but promoting leadership and collaboration. I'm telling you right now, without my teammates, and we're having conversations, hey, what worked for you today and what didn't work? I had a little trouble with Canvas. Can you tell me what I didn't do? Build those relationships with one another. We need it. Okay. And I pointed out to you, and I'm in the way, student achievement. And so this needs to be at the center of everything. And I just said that. So these things all build together. Your standard base, your instructions, your conditions for learning, your professional, all come back to whether your kids are successful. And so I can't say that enough. And you're just going to think about that. It's that circle of life. We just keep going and doing those things. Okay. And so when I think about that, whoops, I need to make these smaller. So just hang on a second while I make that smaller so I'm not in the way all the time. There we go. All right. So basically, you're going to plan it, you're going to teach it, you're creating the environment so that kids can learn, and you're going to maintain those professional standards, and you're going to do it all over again every day, every unit that you do. And I know that each of you are doing a great job. Here's what it looks like in the one-pager. And being an English teacher, I'm very, very happy to use it in one-pager anytime. I have this printed out, and I keep it with my lesson plan book. And this is what's called the protocol. So when someone talks to you about the Marzano protocol, this is it. And I just broke it down for you. It is always circling in. These right here can't happen without each other. And then you need to take care of yourself and promote these responsibilities as you as a professional, because we are professionals. Okay, and I'm going to say this again. I showed you this a minute ago. I alphabetize it here because you may want to be starting to think about, how can I put these things in practice in my remote classroom? And so thinking about them. How are advanced organizers going to work? What's it going to look like to do this? What's my feedback going to look like? Am I going to use a discussion board, Flipgrid? Am I going to have a journal, binder? What is it going to look like? So just kind of look at these, and these are the best practices. Remind you again, look at how, if you have your kids keep track of their own stuff, how much of a gain they're having. And that's going to be so important to your students as we move forward. All right, so there's another piece to that. The district has recently put up the OKCPS Remote and E3 Learning Evaluation Crosswalk. It's in a Google Doc. You can download it, put it on your computer. I actually went ahead and downloaded it in a PDF so that I could keep it close by when planning. And I'm just going to kind of let you see what that looks like. Here is the standards I was just showing you a minute ago, and they're broken down with the 4 areas that I showed you. And right here in the remote, what it looks like. What are some things that you can do? So lesson plans, you can load those into your Canvas. Are you making sure that you're including what you're going to do in your classroom when you're there with your students, as well as do you have plans for your asynchronous days? So those are decisions to think about. How am I segmenting? How are you going to make those segments? And then if it's E3, of course, you're using your Edgenuity. How are you working with that? Or your Seesaw, depending on your grade level. Same thing all the way through. And there are suggestions like the textbook, the curriculum department resources. Please, I will tell you, if you have not downloaded those into your Canvas, the district has done new units for every quarter, and you can download those in Commons to your Canvas and have them right there so that you can open them up when you're planning. And a lot of them already have the scales, so you don't have to create anything new. So those are things that you can reach out for, to kind of check those out. And this kind of goes along with the next piece of when you get into actually thinking about how I'm setting it up. What are engagement things I can use? Well, you know, we're using Google Meets, which has the whiteboard built in, Jamboard. How are you checking that for understanding? Are you using the emojis where the kids can do the emojis, the thumbs up, thumbs down? Maybe you're doing the waterfall. That's what my kids love to do because it's kind of like a little race in the chat box. It's like, type your answer in, but don't push yes. Wait for everybody. Once everyone has their answer, everybody hits go and it waterfalls in, and it's like a little race for the kids to get their answers in, and it's fun. Find things that work for you. You still get the information, and it's like a game. There's all kinds of things out there. The K-20 Center has really been working hard to take a lot of their engagement strategies from paper and pencil to being digital. And so that's there for you too. And new content, talk about anticipation guides, preview videos. If you're using Edgenuity as a supplement in your classroom, you can download that into your Canvas as well, or you can bring in pieces that you need and get that out of the common. Then you have those introduction pieces that you can use to set those lessons up. So just make this your hand guide. It's going to help you all the way through. Okay, so let's kind of look a little bit about what that is when you're navigating that protocol. So here you go. If this were your learning and you're looking at using formative assessments to track progress, remember I said that was the one where kids track their progress, is a huge win for everyone. So they're always going to look to see what the verbs are. You know, what are we using? What are we doing? The student progress. Using a formative approach. So we're using approach. Here's the teacher evidence. So in your eye observation, you would have 2 categories, and the administrator is looking at what the teacher doing. How is the teacher doing this? How is the student responding? So what is the student's evidence? It's not just the teacher, it takes both people to make this collaboration and the community happen. And so the success there, what is happening between the two? Then that's evaluated on the scale, depending on whether everyone's using, whether part of the students are using, whether there's a missing piece when you're self-forming. So these would be a score from 0 to 5. If you're not using, there could be two reasons for that. One, it's not something that would meet the lesson that you're doing, or it is that you don't understand how to do it and your administrator has told you 2 or 3 times, hey, I want to see that when it comes, and they didn't. Then they might mark it and using, but most of the time not using is only used if you are been directed to do something, because if you're not using it, it's probably because it's not called for. But beginning, you're doing this new strategy, you're trying something new, and you're doing it, and maybe it's a little off or you're missing a piece, so then that would be a 1. And then developing, you're using the formative, you're doing most of it, but the problem is not what you're doing, but the kids aren't understanding it. And so if less than 50% of your kids are doing it, then you're going to fall into developing. Remember I said this goes back to evidence on both sides. So I do it perfectly, I got it down, 51% of my kids are getting it, then I'm applying. And then if 90% of my kids are getting it or more, then it's innovating. And so there are some questions down below, if you see these here, reflection questions, so that you can ask yourself, hey, how can I facilitate tracking of student progress using a formative approach to the assessment? And then I can brainstorm that. Then I can go back and do a look in the eye observation for some of the suggestions. And reflection is always a good thing. So in your eye observation, there's a 5-step process for your evaluator to look, and that is they're going to be looking at, what am I seeing when I'm in the classroom? That's what they're looking at. It is just what they see. It's an informal, they're coming in, and just like I said, was the teacher monitoring at the appropriate level? Were the students demonstrating? So we're looking at evidence here, and after monitoring the evidence and determining the number of students, then they will score. And then also in that, did you make any adaptations? So they're in your classroom, some of the students aren't getting it. Did you make a conscious decision to go back and do a check? Did you have a plan for your ELL students? What about your SPED students? Did you have some special plan in case they didn't get it the way you presented it the first time? So those kinds of things are in eye observation. If you've not had a chance to preview eye observation, I encourage you to do that, because there are simple things inside there that will give you hints. A matter of fact, just give me a second and I'm going to change screens to online. All right. And in eye observation, you're going to find that there is a sample place where you can actually go in. And I should have had this already up, but as you're going in to eye observation, realize that there is a place where when you come into eye observation, you're going to be able to look at preview forms so that you are able to get some ideas of things that you can do. And this will help you, especially with this evaluation as well as in the future. So as you go into where it says observation and you have a preview form, you're going to open this up, go to preview. All right, so, and it was looking at the conditions, and we were looking at the evaluation piece, formative assessment. So here we are. This is what we were looking at. And so I want to know exactly what it would look like for a teacher's technique. So I click that arrow. So here you have 2 things. Right here's 2 suggestions of ways that you could approach it. And here are some equity things for that, as I was pointing out. Did you have some adaptations? You know, what are some questions I can do? Ask students to explain their progress toward their learning. Ask students to provide evidence of their progress toward. And then what were some samples that would look like, the desired effect? And then if the percentage here, if you are getting, this is what I was pointing out to you, that evaluations down here, it will tell you how many students are right here in developing, Go over that. So with less than 50% of the students are showing everything, and you did everything that you were supposed to, but the students didn't have the desired effect, then we're not quite there, because then we need to go back and make these adaptations of being able to get the kids to move to 50 to 90% to get approaching, and then over 90% innovative. And once again, here are some examples of those adaptations. You're not being asked to do this by yourself. The beauty is, here's the suggestions for you right there in your eye observation. Some peer resources. How about modifying the task a little bit? So just kind of look at those kind of things. Then on the emphasizing critical content. So let's go back up here. And we said that this was one they're going to evaluate every time. So I think this would be one that I would want to take some time and really look at. See, it pops down. And it also gives you the ELL piece, math piece, and then here again, what am I doing to monitor? Here are some ways that I can check. Look at all those strategies already there for you suggested out. And these all work for things, the exit ticket, the graphic organizer. These are the things you're already doing. Think, pair, share. What else? Question your kids. I do Q&A all the time. And I bet you do too. Appropriate wait time. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. In my head, I count to 10. I have to, because if I don't, it's like, especially when you're sitting there on the computer with your kids and you're seeing avatars and you're just like, okay, are they here? Are they listening? And you really have to give them time. And all of a sudden I see the little chat box fill up, or I see a little microphone come on. So don't forget to give the kids wait time. Okay. Desired effect. They're here. So you're looking at those types of things. Just go in and play with eye observation. I think that you're going to be amazed when you start looking how many of these things you already do. Okay. All right. We're going to switch back to our PowerPoint that we were looking at. So standard-based planning, we looked at that. This is what it used to look like. You had it on the wall. You had your learning goal. You had your success. You still need to have those things. You still need to have expectations for the kids. They still need to know exactly. So learning goal, what's the criteria? So, and then in the classroom, you probably had all kinds of things for them to still do that. And here's my skill. So as you go forward on that, here's what it can look like in a Canvas. So today I will. Here's my learning objective so that I can. And here are all of our targets that we want to be able to do by the end of this week we're working on. And then I'll know I've got it if I can do these things. Okay, so that right there holds kids accountable in your Canvas. And then here's your week lined out. I tend to do a workshop model because it keeps me organized. It keeps me remembering that I only do a little bit and the kids do a whole lot. So we have the overview, which I just showed you one. The bell work is there when the kids come in, just like in the classroom when it was in person. So there's a comfortable connection there. They feel comfortable. They know what to expect. They know this is how it's always been. And they know if they miss, they can go into Canvas, they can still find the things and not feel lost. So I like that for them to build that. That's a strategy in itself, making the kids feel comfortable and successful. So lesson, activities, and then the wrap up. So just one last thing I'm going to point to you is that when you're talking about learning goals, and that's going to be a big piece because that controls everything you do all day, it's not writing down, we're going to watch a video for the characteristics of the moon, and it's going to be this page, we're going to take notes. That's the activities. That's how the kids learn. But what you want them to learn is the learning goal. So when you're putting these up, make sure that this is the biggest thing that I think we make mistakes for, because I know that in the beginning, when we first started doing Marzano, I was still putting this on the board, and my administrator was like, yeah, is that a learning goal or is that an activity? So just little things like that. That's why I say this is you already doing best practices. It's just now putting it in a protocol and having a little structure to it. And don't we do that with our kids? So, and great feedback. Don't forget about the instruction, the new units. You can go here and view them, and you can also load them into your Canvas through the Commons. So that's here for you. Once again, you're going to be working with these constantly. This should be your map for success. Student achievement, always working towards student achievement. All right. Now, there's the scale. This is in your TLE that I mentioned earlier. So if you are hitting with those things, developing is a effective, highly effective, superior, needs improvement, effective. That has state standard. The top here, the developing, beginning, innovating, is a Marzano. And this just shows you how the state and Marzano line up. Okay. So either in their TLE, you can kind of read a little bit about that and exactly how that plays out. I hope that helps you. And like I said, I am at Northwest Classen. You're welcome to reach out to me if you need any help, because I'd be glad to collaborate with any of you. But at AFT, here's your connection. Mary Beth, there's her email and the telephone number for AFT. I thank you for joining me. I hope that I've been able to give you some insight. And as I say again, I challenge you to be a part of AFT. I can't say enough of wonderful things about the collaboration and being part of a team. So I hope you join us in the future. Have a good evening and a great school year. And I hope you finish strong for the end of the semester.